What's up, folks? Fiftyeight here with another edition of Is It Real? And today we are discussing the legend, or the urban legend, of the San Antonio ghost children. It's San Antonio, Texas. The stars at night are big and bright, deep in the heart of Texas. So anyway, the story, it begins in 1938, but I'm going to start in the 70s, where a legend or a story began to circulate in San Antonio near a set of train tracks, where if your car was in neutral, it would mysteriously begin to roll forward off these tracks. Now, the story began to circulate that sometime, I didn't really get specifics on the San Antonio version, but at some time in the past, a school bus filled with children had stalled over these same tracks while a train was coming and had been hit, and everybody had been killed. And nearby these tracks in San Antonio, there's streets, and they have children's names like Billy and Susie and you know, what have you. And there have even been some reports, very few, that on the backs of these cars, where I guess the trunk would be, there was small handprints, like children's handprints, showing, you know, as if it had been pushed. Now, through the research I have done, the story is, it's true and false at the same time. Now, the story actually begins in a little place called South Jordan, Utah, near Salt Lake City, and it was 1938, and it was a school day, and there was 26 children and a bus driver. I think it was a school teacher. They were driving to school, or maybe from school, but basically they were driving, and the bus stalled on the tracks. And horribly enough, a train was coming, and it hit, and everybody was killed. All of the children. And, you know, today in the news, when something like that happens, it's, you know, the media is all over it, and in 1938 it wasn't any different. There was a lot of attention around this area. They got a lot of support too from everybody all over the country, and there had also been a convergence of media outlets from all over the United States, including San Antonio. And so you can imagine that every major newspaper, probably in North America, covered this story. And it's easy enough to understand why San Antonio and a few other places in America that I'd found out have this story about ghost children. So for everybody to adopt it, it's understandable, because it was such a huge tragedy. It was such a long time ago that people, they remember the tragedy, but they don't remember every single detail, and, you know, they'll forget that, well, it was in Salt Lake City, not in San Antonio. Or it was in Salt Lake City, or not in Salt Lake City, but in Jordan, instead of, you know, in New Jersey, where there's another phenomenon where this happens. The streets in San Antonio were named after children that are near the tracks, but they were named after the developer's grandchildren, the guy who built the streets originally. That's why they're named after children. However, in Utah, near the tracks where this accident really did occur, there are streets named after children, and they are named after the children that were killed in the bus accident. Now, like I said, as the story faded from public consciousness, they just forgot certain details that, you know, that had happened in one place and not the other. It happens even today, even on the internet. A story happens a couple of years ago, and, you know, we can't remember if it, you know, certain things. And this is 70 years. More than 70 years later, and it only took until the 1970s, and the story had changed too. There had been stories of vanishing teenagers implemented with it, the vanishing hitchhiker, so they're just, it's an urban legend. It is true to a degree, but it's also false. As to ghosts, well, no, it clearly isn't. Anyone who stands on a road, and if they're looking and it looks like it's dipping down or dipping up, it's usually not actually doing that, you know. Or if it looks straight, it may actually dip. It's called a, you know, an optical illusion. You know, it's not just, you know, drawings on papers and books when you're in school. These are actual things you can see. The roads, like in New Jersey, there's a whole website, and I'm including all the links to this story. in the description below the video. In New Jersey, there's a gravity road, or gravity hill, whatever you prefer, where the way the trees grow and the way the road is laid out, it does look like you're going up, but you're actually going down. You know, it's just one of those things where it's like perspective. You go on Facebook, and the other day I saw somebody with a 4-foot cat that weighed, 500 pounds, but you just do this, I can make Shadow look 500. Look, he's huge, and he's gonna step on you, asshole. It's just forced perspective. It happens in buildings. They built, it was built like that. I'm not sure why they built it like that. The trees grow on their own, so maybe that just added to it. There's all tons of websites. I've included sites in the description about Gravity Hill, about optical illusions, as well as things dealing with this urban legend and ghosts. Now, the thing about me, I don't really believe in ghosts. I don't really think that they exist. What I do believe is that, and you can watch these ghost hunter shows, they'll even talk about these things called electromagnetic fields, and that when they're around, that means ghosts are around. Well, I've got, some websites that say, maybe it's not ghosts. Maybe it's just these electromagnetic fields that are messing with our brains. And, that's what it seems more like to me. I mean, I don't really believe in ghosts. I think that when we experience these, these knocks and these scratching and, moaning, maybe it's coming from our own head, because these electromagnetic fields where these ghosts supposedly live, there's no ghosts, it's just the fields, messing with your brain. It's, it can happen. There's been scientific studies. You can check it all out, and it's really interesting stuff. If you're into trying to figure out this ghost stuff, I suggest you take a look at it, because I believe there might be aliens, but I do not believe there might be ghosts. Not in the sense that, you see guys on TV hunting or in movies, I mean, maybe it's just energy, and, that has something to do with the EMFs. I'm not a scientist. I'm not saying that's what it is. I could be wrong about the energy stuff. I don't know. It's not something I really believe in, so I don't really care, Something like aliens, yeah, I care about that, because that seems more logical to me than, ghosts, floating around, and, yeah, they can go to a girl's locker room. Why are they going to, piss with me? I mean, that's not what I would do if, if I were a ghost. You pervert. Shut up! Anyway, in the end, the only thing true about this horrible tragedy is the tragedy itself. The ghost story is pretty well debunked. It's just an optical illusion. Incline where you can't see it because it's slight. You got to put your car in neutral in order for this phenomenon to happen. So that should tell you something right there. And like I said, I got links to everything about this story, plus electromagnetic fields and optical illusions. So you're going to be set with all these links if you have more questions. Please spin dash that like and sub button. My book, The Time Rippers, is available on Amazon.com. You can look for it in the description below in the video. And yeah, that's it. Shadow, can you spin dash us out? Sure, you perv.